Welcome to another video from the files of unsolved ghost stories. Ever heard any airport horror stories from travelers? Well, if you haven't, we've got some bone-chilling horror stories from real travelers right here in this video. So buckle up and let's jump right into the video. True horror stories, creepiest airport horror stories from real travelers. Number 3. As a college student, every bit of extra money helps. So midway through the semester, I decided to work part-time at my local airport as a ramp agent. Basically, I'm in charge of loading and unloading your luggage. It occurs from time to time that dead bodies are transported in cargo bins, and that was the case tonight. In addition, it was pouring rain with lightning. My manager assigned me to throw this plane. Throwing simply meant that I had to pull the cargo from the plane storage bin. I was already tired from school earlier that day, but it was the last flight of the night, so there wasn't too much cargo to unload. Dave, my co-worker, raised the ramp on the plane so I could walk up the conveyor belt to enter the storage bin. The cramped space was small, and I made sure to sit as far away as possible from the white cardboard box carrying the body. It was just me up there, and I tried to be quick because I just wanted to go home and sleep, although I wasn't able to do much to speed up the process. We use a very slow conveyor belt so that the guys on the ground can scan each package individually. After setting down packages for maybe 5 minutes, I noticed that the lightning was becoming more frequent and appeared right on top of us. In my earbuds, I was trying to ignore the crash, but it was the loudest crash I had ever heard. It was lightning, but so close that I fell almost immediately. As I instinctively looked up, I saw the most haunting sight I had ever seen. Towards the end of the plane storage bin, the lid of the cargo bin containing the dead body flew off in the darkness. The body sat upright now. As the body flipped over from a lying to an upright position, the lid of the jar had literally fallen off. At this point, I was in such panic that I ran as fast as I could down the ramp while my coworkers screamed at me that the plane had just been struck by lightning. When we went inside, I told them what I'd just seen in the plane storage bin after I had caught my breath. I will never forget how quickly the color on their faces disappeared, followed by looks of horror. After perhaps 5 minutes of discussing the situation and hearing the fear in my voice, my manager decided it was best for me to go home. I was in shock the entire time I drove home. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea if what I saw was real or not. In the evening before I got home, one of my coworkers texted me and explained how he saw it when he went back up into the storage bin. The lid of the cargo bin with the dead body was off, but the corpse itself was not sitting upright. During my research, I investigated whether a lightning strike could cause a dead body's muscles to tense up enough to make it physically sit up. It took me a few seconds to find any results on this. I am still not sure whether what I saw was caused by the lightning, my mind playing a trick on me as a result of fatigue, or something else altogether. But either way, I would quit my job at the airport that morning. I couldn't see the money as being worth it at that point since I had experienced so much trauma. Number 2. Despite living in Portland, Oregon, my job often takes me to completely different cities for the weekend or even a few weeks at a time. What I do sometimes is similar to that of an event manager, and I have to travel around a lot to be present at different events. Since my company pays for my flights, I always felt like I was put on the cheapest flight no matter where I had to be. It's understandable that the company was trying to save money, but this often led to terrible flight experiences, and to say I saw some interesting people would be an understatement, but to be completely honest, I didn't mind. I figured as long as I got to my destination in one piece, that was all that mattered, or at least that's what I thought at the time. I was returning to Oregon from the Dallas airport. It was a Sunday night and I had just finished working pretty much the entire weekend, and I had to go into the office Monday morning. I was already exhausted from the whole weekend, so I literally had to drag myself to my gate. Probably something I should have mentioned was that my flight was actually broken up into 2 parts. I flew from Dallas to Sacramento and then to Portland. The first flight wasn't that full. I was sitting in a window seat and only one other person was in my row. He looked pretty average, except his clothes were a bit old and torn. But then again, who dresses up well for a flight? I was so exhausted that I just felt like sitting up against the wall to fall asleep despite polite small talk for a few minutes. While I was doing it, I pulled out my phone to watch something. The dude looked over his shoulder at me before I could even close my eyes. I just tried to shake it off. My first thought was that he was just trying to look out the window rather than my movie, but not even a minute later, I heard him say something like, "Oh great, just ignore me." This happened several times, but I convinced myself I was just misreading the guy. However, I eventually caught sight of the guy scrawling furiously on a leather book and on a page. He held it instinctively. While peering at it, I quickly realized almost the entire page was filled with handwritten words that were so small I could barely read them. It was then that I realized he was writing about me. My name was clearly written down. I must have mentioned my name when we were talking earlier. Unfortunately, I couldn't make out any more words. It was too small and too far away. As a result, it was almost impossible for me to fall asleep. I was really disturbed, as I'm sure anyone would be. Finally, we landed in Sacramento and people started getting off the plane, but the guy next to me made absolutely no attempt to start packing up his things. By the time Arrow's turn came around, nothing had happened. He sat there with his head down, forcing the rows behind us to start moving. Eventually, I mentioned the night flight he had to catch, and with his head down and almost mumbling, he said, "I'm gonna follow you. You're not leaving this airport alive." I forced a laugh thinking he was joking, but the dude seemed serious. While he let me out, it became apparent he was going to follow me. My walk became a jog before realizing he was doing the same. 5 minutes later, I reached the gate for my connecting flight, still with the guy behind me. I tried hard to maintain my composure and explained firmly that I had no idea who this guy was who was now standing right next to me. Initially, they laughed, thinking I was joking, but after seeing the desperation in my eyes, their smiles began to fade. As they hesitantly asked for our boarding passes, I gave them mine and so did the guy following me. The employees made a few calls and then told me to follow them. They took me through the boarding door and closed it before the man could follow us. I was boarded 10 minutes before anyone else. In the end, the rest of the passengers were let on and a woman sat behind me asked what had happened. After I told her a brief summary, she replied, "Yeah, that guy freaked out the second you got on the plane. He was screaming and practically tearing his hair out. The police were called to remove him." I was horrified by this and began to believe the guy intended to kill me. It's clear the guy had some sort of mental problem, or I guess I can't confirm this since I don't know any more details. But if that's the case, I hope he gets the help he needs. Number 1. 10 years ago, when I was around 7 years old, this happened to me. My family travels a lot, so even when I was 7, I had already been on an airplane more often than I could count. During this time, I also became very familiar with their local airport's layout. In this case, we arrived at our gate around 2 hours early. I remember walking around half that long for the bathroom. My parents knew I knew the layout of the airport, or at least how to get to the bathroom, so they let me go alone, so I did. I walked 5 minutes to the main bathrooms, which were the only ones I knew about. It was around 3 a.m., and I guess that's when the bathrooms were clean since they were roped off, indicating they were closed. Since I was 7 and not the best decision maker, I wandered aimlessly around the airport. It was a little difficult for me to find another bathroom, and this led me to a hallway that was kind of isolated from the rest of the airport. After noticing the bathroom sign near the end, I walked down the hallway. Another halfway down though, I saw a head peeking out from the corner. It was a man. I instinctively stopped. "Hey kid, come over here." I continued walking down the hall without even thinking about it. At that time, I honestly thought the man was an employee and he was going to direct me to a bathroom for me, but he explained that he was lost and needed my help finding his plane's gate. At the time, I not only trusted and believed him, but was actually looking forward to helping this man. As mentioned before, I was familiar with a good deal of the airport and helping an adult made me feel special. In response, I said that I wanted to help him, but that I wanted to let my parents know what I was doing as soon as possible. This was not even a precaution. I was just so excited that I wanted to share it with them. I told them I'd be right back. As I turned around and started to head back to my gate, he began yelling at me and saying that there wasn't enough time since his plane was about to depart. I replied to him by saying I would hurry up. As I exited the hallway, I turned back and saw the man practically running out of the hallway and down the stairs that led to the airport's exit. It seemed a little strange at the time, but since I never mentioned it to my parents and found the bathroom I could use, I kind of forgot about it. Then, a couple of years ago, I was talking with coworkers about strange experiences we had as kids, and that memory just popped back into my head. The older I got, the faster I realized what almost happened. I only realized how much danger I was in years later in retrospect. Although I should have told my parents right away, I just hope he didn't try it on any other vulnerable kids like me. We hope you got a thrill out of our latest True Horror Stories video installment. Let us know what you think and let us know if you have any requests for future video topics. Also, if you or someone you know has a true horror story to share, please email us at unsolvedghost2022@gmail.com.